The alarm sounded at first silently. Not the type of silence that occurs when markets are closed or when trading floors descend into the noise of after-hours data. This silence was of another kind, stifling, oppressive, as the silence before an accident. It was late one Thursday evening in Lower Manhattan. The avenues around the great edifices of Wall Street had cleared. On one of the glowing monitors inside the 32nd floor of Hamilton and Stone Capital, a hedge fund that has a record of outperforming the market by unbelievably large percentages, $1 billion had disappeared in less than 6 minutes. Ethan Cole, chief risk officer of the fund, had been bent forward, frozen. The numbers didn't make sense. He did it again with the models, looked over the inside ledgers, and still gone. Not a loss. Not a bad bet. A disappearance. The trades were sold, and the wires carried, and the destination accounts were shadows. Ghosts in the system. Ethan flicked his screen before he could pick up the phone to make a call to compliance. The code was a scrolling rapid stream of lines his eyes could not follow. Then the system disconnected him. Access denied. His stomach sank. In a Brooklyn loft, surrounded by twisted and frayed wires and vibrating servers, a woman who only identifies herself as Vega shut her laptop with a small smile. For some time she had seen Ethan panicking through a mirrored back door, which she coded months back. It did not matter to her whether the billions of dollars were hers to hold on to. It was leverage. What sort of leverage? You might have to bend some of the most powerful men in America to your will. But Ethan was unaware of the existence of Vega. Not yet. Instead, he thought of only one individual, Clare Dawson, the investigative reporter who had almost felled Hamilton and Stone 5 years ago when she revealed their dubious liaisons in Eastern Europe. Since then, she had written a book, Markets of Smoke, and had established a reputation as the one reporter whom Wall Street feared. And she was the one who could help him put this together without setting off the panic alarm, should someone be able to aid him in doing so. Ethan called, and Claire did not answer. Already, she was trailing her own lead. The same Thursday morning, Claire received an encrypted email. No subject line, no sender ID. Inside, one line of text. Before you can count them, they will disappear. Follow the wires. Here was a piece of a swift transaction login complete, untraceable. Yet there was something familiar about it. It was the same code that she had observed a few years prior during her investigation of the Panama Papers, except that it was not an offshore shell company holding their tax funds. It was domestic. The U.S. banking system was being used as a smokescreen by someone. When Ethan later managed to track her down to a coffee shop close to Union Square, Claire was not convinced. You feel like I should know how your billion-dollar hole in the books is involved with this? Sliding the printout over the table, she said, What? Ethan nodded. He had a steady voice, but trembling hands. This isn't a loss, Claire. It's precision theft. The rails had been rewritten by someone as the train went past. They compared notes. Ethan's missing $1 billion. Claire's mysterious tip. The lines were too well superimposed. It is then that Ethan admitted the bit he hadn't reported to compliance. The transfers were not being lost. They were stacking, bouncing off through small-town credit unions in Ohio, rural banks in Montana, even a church fund in Texas, and then pooling into accounts linked to shell companies that had no employees, no tax filings, no physical presence. Somebody had taken years to create a spider web, which came to life only this night. The instincts of Claire told her two things. First, this wasn't random. Second, as Ethan was correct, this was only the beginning move. The second wave struck the same night, when they were reading the data in the apartment of Claire. Here another $600 million was stolen, this time not by Hamilton and Stone, but by a competitor fund in town. Then a Californian pension fund. Then a Boston University endowment. By the middle of the night, $3 billion were wiped out. The money press was not yet aware of it. The companies were too frightened to issue an offering. And Ethan and Claire knew the magnitude. It was not the theft. It was destabilization. Markets would collapse when the word spread. In a low profile, the FBI had been engaged by Friday morning. Ethan and Claire were called to a secure floor in a boring federal building downtown by Special Agent Marcus Hale, the head of the cybercrimes division. Hale was direct, almost cold. It is not some rogue hacker out to cash in, he said. This is not the first such anomaly we have been monitoring. Whoever is behind it knows the system better than the people who created it. And they are not robbing money. They are experimenting on how quickly they can get the matter without being seen. Claire posed the only question that was important. Why? Hill was about to reply, as there is no way that you can move money this way and not control markets. Trigger crashes. Topple governments. Vega, who stood in her loft looking on the commotion, was 10 moves ahead. She hadn't touched the money. Rather, she had wove it through so many dead ends in the financial system that by the time investigators believed they had followed it, they would be staring at smoke. And when they all finally met, she was going to publish a bulletin. Not about wealth, about power. She felt that the international financial system was a fixed match. The rules were written to favor hedge funds by the banks. The politicians ignored it. The markets were not run properly. She did not want a portion of the system. She would like to burn it down a billion at a time. Ethan and Claire set out rebuilding a profile. Vega preferred nodes or financial institutions in the network that were obscure and had lax cybersecurity, which were usually located in rural areas or associated with religious organizations. She is not greedy, but she took advantage of trust. She was not an amateur, whoever she was. She was ideological, but there was one slip. Metadata indicating an IP address that had not been scrubbed completely was left behind in a transfer that had briefly touched a regional bank in Vermont. It was a breadcrumb little, but sufficient to allow Hale to triangulate his team. By Saturday night, they had a place to go, a Brooklyn warehouse. It was still humming when they raided it, cables still warm. But Vega was gone. One message blinking on a monitor stated, "You're too late. The system is not owned by anybody anymore." The servers told the reality. Vega hadn't stolen billions. She had redirected them into a network of digital accounts that were not central, traceable, or even locatable, a system that can conceal trillions. It had nothing to do with money itself. It was the construction of a hole in the financial plumbing of the world which was to be permanent. The markets opened on Monday, and the ripple had become a storm. Word went round, and trust was broken. Companies scrambled to assure investors. Before noon, the Dow went down 1,200 points. And in the confusion, the manifesto of Vega was posted on the internet. It was eloquent, caustic, accurate. She has presented decades of manipulation, inequality, and systemic corruption. And you made a monster that swallows lives and passes it off as efficiency, she wrote. Now you are going to live without the semblance of power. Claire read the manifesto aloud to Ethan. I cannot believe it. She doesn't want the money. She desires to show that nobody can hold it. Hale leaned forward. That being the case, this is not the theft. This is a war against the concept of money. Ethan understood that the nightmare had just started as markets convulsed. Vega had not ruined the system. She had exposed it. In that way, she had provided all hackers, criminal cartels, and other enemy countries around the world with a roadmap to how to disappear, a billion at a time, the financial world. And then, as promptly as she had opened her eyes, Vega fell silent. The FBI never found her. Ethan went back to Hamilton and Stone, and the company never regained its reputation. Claire wrote the story of her life, but even she confessed, in the last book, that nobody really knew what had become of the missing billions. According to some, Vega was using them to create a parallel economy. Other people said that she sent them back without any noise and deleted her tracks. The reality was more basic and much more dreadful. The money hadn't disappeared. It had merely shifted somewhere into the shadows. And it was never getting it back out of the shadows.